Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namane Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Pracharane Nirvisesa Sanyavadi Paskechade Shatarane Vanjakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, in relation to the fall of the jiva, the correct understanding is that the jiva is a tatastha shakti. We're going to give some references here in a moment. We're going to share our screen and look at the meaning of tatastha shakti, which is the marginal potency of the Lord. And when the marginal potency of the Lord becomes attracted to the material energy, then he is considered nitya mukta, or eternally conditioned. So from his neutral position, he becomes, ignores or does not know or ignores the lotus feet of the Lord. And because of that, he becomes attracted to the material energy and then becomes conditioned by the material energy. So the desire that causes him to become controlled by the material energy occurs in his neutral position, because the tatastha shakti jiva can see both sides of the shore. He sees the material side and the spiritual side, but unaware of the spiritual side, unaware of the importance of the spiritual side, unaware of the devotion that is going on the spiritual side. Lacking that understanding, and it being atomic in size, meaning very small, he becomes attracted to the glare of the material energy. And lacking service to the Lord, lacking that potency of service to the Lord, he becomes captured by the material energy. Therefore, it is said that the conditioning of the nitya mukta jiva has no beginning. It can't be traced because it didn't occur in the material world. It occurred in the marginal position of the tatastha jiva. This is where it occurred. And we're going to show some evidence of this and how that happened, or evidence. And that is also important to note that in the material world, the jiva, trying to get out of the three modes of material nature, may rise to the platform of Brahman temporarily, but then, because he is unaware or ignoring the personality of Godhead and devotional service, he falls from that position, that neutral position of Brahman. So you cannot stay in that position. This is all evidence in the Shastras and Srimad Bhagavatam from Lord Brahma, explaining this to the demigods, that unless one is engaged in devotional service, he cannot stay in any lofty position, because he will think himself God, or his ego will become prominent, and he will lose his neutral position due to that illusion, and he will fall. So the jiva in the material world once he's in the human platform and he's trying to get out of the modes of material nature, either he's enjoying the material nature through sense gratification and he's trying to alleviate his suffering through sense gratification. And when that fails, he tries through renunciation. And that will fail as well. So this is sukha dukkha, back and forth, until the jiva meets the pure devotee and engages in bhakti, and then he becomes familiar with Krishna, his pastimes, his supremacy, and this then gives him complete liberation, permanent liberation from the three modes of material nature. Let's see here. So in the Badaranyaka Upanishad, the jiva is a large fish living in, just as a large fish living in the river wanders from one bank to the other, so the jiva is of a similar quality and is equipped to wander in the karna waters between the material and spiritual worlds. The jiva Purush should inquire about two locations, the material and the spiritual world. The jiva is situated in a third position called svapna, stan, on the border between these two places. Situated in this marginal place, he can see both the material and spiritual worlds. Jiva Goswami says, although spiritual and conscious by nature, the jiva lives on the border between the spiritual and material worlds. When it chooses to enter the material world, it becomes contaminated by the modes of nature. That is said to be the spirit soul. What's important, and then we're gonna read some Bhakti Vinod as well here, but what's important to note here from Jiva Goswami is that when he chooses, so this is a very important terminology here, and it is related to the tatastha jiva in his neutral condition. This means that when he was in his tatastha, this svapna, or this neutral stage, he chose the material side, if you will. He chose to go to the material side. So the contamination or the desire for material life began at this place in his tatastha, position. The jiva does have a tatastha position, and this is what's being pointed out here by the Badaranyaka Upanishad, by Jiva Goswami, and we'll see also by Bhakti Vinod and by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. The jiva does have a tatastha marginal position. It's a neutral position from where he can see both the spiritual and material worlds. He's in a neutral position when he desires the material energy. So he falls because he has he lacks knowledge of Krishna. So he becomes attracted to Krishna's Maya. And before we go into Bhakti Vinod, there is a really important verse here in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yenye ravindaksa vimukta maninas, payasta bhavara vishuddha buddhaya, aruha kritstrena parampadam tata, patanti adho nadra yushmad angraya. Someone may ask that aside from devotees who always seek shelter at the Lord's lotus feet, there are those who are not devotees, but who have accepted different processes for attaining salvation. What happens to them? In answer to this question, Lord Brahma and the other demigods said, O lotus-eyed Lord, although non-devotees who accept severe austerities and penances to achieve the highest position may think themselves liberated, their intelligence is impure. They fall down from their position of imagined superiority because they have no regard for your lotus feet. So this is really important. This basically is saying that whether they are jnanis, yogis, philanthropists, impersonalists, voidists, anyone who rises not just to the liberated platform, but even to high positions of material platform, if they're not devotees, they fall. This is really a beautiful verse by Srila Prabhupada. Those who are not faithful on the path of devotional service cannot attain me, but return to birth and death in this material world. It doesn't matter if they're karmi, jnani, yogi, whoever. If they don't have, if they're not Krishna conscious or they're not worshiping Lord Krishna, they will fall. And this is the verdict of Lord Brahma, who is a Mahajan, the first living entity in the material world, very, very unparalleled in his knowledge. So this means that the jiva, the tatastha shakti, the tatastha jiva, the marginal jiva who does not take shelter of Krishna in devotional service, he falls to the material world. He's in his neutral position when he falls. He's in an uncontaminated, neutral position when he falls. This is important. This is a very important thing because Prabhupada has been emphasizing all along, as well as the other acharyas, that the jiva is originally pure. He has no maya in him. He is constitutionally pure when he becomes attracted to the material energy. I know some people find it hard to believe that the pure living entity with no modes of material nature in him can become attracted to the material nature. But that is exactly what is being said here by Lord Brahma. Because of non-devotees, Prabhupada says, even if they become president or prime minister, one must work very hard to achieve the post, and they still can fall. They fall because of their impure intelligence. Only if you become a devotee of Vishnu can you stay in this and rise and stay permanently in this platform of Brahman. You become a pure living, you become situated in your constitutional position, and you do not fall. You will not become contaminated by the modes of material nature. You will not become attracted to Maya when you are a firm devotee of the Lord. That's what's being pointed out there. It is devotional service that keeps one from falling permanently. That's the whole idea here. And that is what Prabhupada is saying here. Dhruva Maharaj, Svayam Kritarto, Smi Varam Najache. Now I am fully satisfied. I do not want any material benediction. If one achieves a shelter of the Lord's lotus feet, one is fully satisfied and does not need to ask for any material benediction, not even liberation. So Premanjana Charita Bhakti Valochanena Shantak Sadaiva Hridayesha Valokayanti. Those who are attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in love always see the Lord's lotus eyes and lotus feet, whereas others cannot see the Lord's beauty and are therefore classified as Anandrita Yusmad Angraya, or neglectful of the Lord's personal form. So this is the difference here. This is what is being explained in relationship to any jiva that is not involved in devotional service. Even if he goes up to the platform of Brahman liberation, he will fall again. He will fall. And this is what is being said here by Lord Brahma. So let's go back to these other quotes here by Bhakti Vinod. The moment that the jiva desires to enjoy independently while gazing at the two banks of the river, they become averse to Krishna, who is like the sun. So this is a really beautiful quote by Srila Bhakti Vinod, but he's explaining to us that the aversion to Krishna exists in the jiva, the possibility of being averse to Krishna, exists on the neutral or tatastha platform of the jiva. It is something that occurs while he is in his tata position of neutrality. The jiva appeared by the marginal energy at the dividing line between spirit and matter. From that position, he began to gaze at the spiritual and material worlds. Those jivas who were attracted somewhat to realization of the Lord became desirous of the spiritual realm because of that contact of knowledge. They then obtained strength from the hladini potency, which made them favorable to the Lord eternally, and they were brought into the spiritual world as associates of the Lord. Those are the nityasiddhas. Those who by their own free will, those are actually the liberated, the nityasiddhas who came from Mahavishnu. I think that will be explained, that coming from Mahavishnu, there are two types of jivas, those that became those that became attracted to this Lord's service in Vaikuntha, Goloka, and those that became averse. Those who by their own free will became bewildered and became greedy for Maya, situated on the opposite side, this is talking about in his tatastha marginal position, prior to becoming conditioned by the modes of nature. Being beckoned by Maya, then become attracted to the material universe and were thrown by the universe by Karanavaksai Vishnu, the controller of Maya. That way, the result of that, and that is Mahavishnu. That way, the result of their eternal aversion to the Lord, that was the result of their eternal aversion to the Lord. The moment they entered the material realm, they became overcome by ignorance, the function of Maya. Overcome by ignorance, they fell into the wheel of binding karma in order to become fully absorbed in their task. This is Bhakti Vinod. It should be noted that the jiva is neither produced of the material world nor created in the transcendental world. They are originated from the marginal line between the transcendental and mundane spheres. So Bhakti Vinod is explaining to us that the jiva is marginal by nature. He's not created in the transcendental world. He's not a part of the material world. He's a svapna, he's a different, he is spiritual, but he's marginal. There's a different type of potency. You must understand this. Among the unlimited potencies of Sri Krishna, there is one known as tatastha, Shakti, border potency. So Bhakti Vinod is calling this border potency. From the Shakti, from that Shakti comes out the jiva souls, remaining at the junction of the two worlds, the transcendental and the mundane ones, may contact them both. So he is called jiva. The jiva is coming from the tatastha Shakti, or the tatastha potency of the Lord. It's not hladini potency, and he's not Maya potency. It is tatastha potency. And being atomic in size, on account of the purity in its composition, it has got the capacity for being the eternal denizen with divine bliss in the transcendental power. So the jiva has gotten he is by nature pure. He's not of the material world. He is by nature, he is pure in his composition, but he's marginal. This is what's really being explained here. A jiva is a spark of the eternal consciousness. It's on the line of demarcation. The semblance or dim reflection of the internal chit potency is the jiva shakti, or tatastha shakti, stationed in between chit jagat and achit jagat. All the jivas emanate from the tatastha Shakti of God, and accordingly, the mundane worlds emanate from the Maya Shakti of God. So the jiva is coming not from the same potency as the mundane world. It is coming from a different potency of God. In the Brahma Samhita, the constituent particles in the form of pencils of effulgence of Mahavishnu are manifest as the individual souls, the jivas. Okay, here's a beautiful quote in Jaiva Dharma. The root of all actions is the desire for acts. So the root of all actions is desire. And the root of which, again, is avidya. Avidya, which is ignorance, is the name for the forgetfulness of the soul's essential nature, that I am Krishna's servant. So this avidya, or ignorance, which is the root of all mundane acts, right, did not commence within the course of mundane time. It didn't. This desire, as is being explained by Bhakti Vinod, this desire for ignorance did not occur within the material world. It occurred prior or outside of. That root of karma, of the jiva, arose when he was at the tatastha position. The root of karma, which is explained here, the root of all actions, which is avidya, the ignorance, which is coming from the jiva, due to, and ignorance is being defined as actions which are averse to devotional service to Krishna. That coming from the marginal position of the jiva prior to mundane time. It's a desire that he had prior to coming to the material world. As such, the beginning of karma is not to be traced within material time or mundane time. And on account of that, karma is beginningless. That is the definition of nitya mukta, or anadi. The term anadi means beginningless because it can't be traced to anything within the mundane world. It starts even before the mundane experience. It's going back to the neutral tatastha position of the jiva, when he had the free will to enter either into the material world or the spiritual world. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta beautifully explains the very same points here, very beautifully. Here he explains jivas are of two kinds, nitya mukta and nitya baddha. Free jivas are never enslaved. They are serving the Lord in 5 different functions. We know those functions, those different rasas. Jiva, once entered there, never comes back. Then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says the inconceivably narrowest line of demarcation between land and water, or the line where land and water meet, is called Tata. So also the meeting line of the Chit world and the eternal abode of the Supreme Lord and the Achit world, or the Tata region of Maya, is called Tata. So this means that there's such a fine line. It's beautiful. It's such a fine line. It's not like even it's called the Viraj River, but here it's being described as being a line. It's such a fine line between the material and spiritual world. And so just imagine you have the spiritual world on one side where everything is transcendental, everyone there is being engaged in the service of the Lord. And just to the other side, if you will, of that line is Maya, where everything is being engaged in the service, in the service of the jivas, illusory service of the jivas. And then you have that line right in between where the jivas can go either way. This is called the Tata potency. It's the line in between the material and spiritual world. The jiva is a marginal potency of the Lord. He's not originating in the spiritual world. He's not originating in the material world. And the power of the Supreme Lord displayed as a Tata is known as a tatastha, or marginal power. All the jivas being the display of this power have the inherent oscillating tendency and capability of going to either the material or spiritual world. Inherent oscillating tendency, which it kind of like describes, coming from his neutral position, he starts to oscillate. The neutral jiva starts to oscillate from his neutral position. It's like waking up from a sleeping state. He's sleeping, he's in a neutral state. He wakes up to see what's going on, and he begins to look here and there, here and there. He looks at, and that is described as the condition of the jiva, the tatastha jiva. He's oscillating. Which way? What do I looks at material world? He looks at the spiritual world. He looks at the material world. He looks at the spiritual world, and he's beginning to oscillate, which means he will have to choose. He will have to choose because he's in an oscillating state now. Tata not being a resting place. See, he must choose. Jiva must go this side or that. Those preferring, and then it explains, everything else is explained here, the fall, he chooses either one or the other. Srila Sridhar Maharaj also is explaining the same thing. Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshava Maharaj, Srila Puri Maharaj, again, going back, the Briharandarakya Upanishad explains very nicely the marginal position of the jiva. So it's really beautiful. Everything here is explained very, very nicely. And Srila Prabhupada explains also here, the conclusion is that no one falls in the spiritual world of Vaikuntha, for it is the eternal abode. So this means that the jiva did not originate in the Vaikunthas or Goloka. He originated, he is at a marginal potency of the Lord. This is his original position. And so this is the purpose here of this entire explanation. It is to better understand what is tatastha Shakti. We must try to understand what is tatastha Shakti. So it would be incorrect to say that the conditioning of the nitya bada, or the conditioned jiva, our conditioning did not occur in the material world. It occurred in the marginal position. And one may ask, how can conditioning occur in the tatastha region? Well, it's not that conditioning occurred there, it's the choice that occurred there. The choice. This is what is being explained by our acharyas. The choice of the jiva occurred in the tata position. And once that choice is made, then concomitant reactions occur. If the jiva chooses the spiritual world, he is absorbed, or he is, I'm not absorbed, but he is supported by the hladini Shakti. So he gets strength from the hladini Shakti, which is the internal potency of Krishna, which is devotional service. And so he makes it to the spiritual world. he is supported by the hladini Shakti. The jiva oscillating in the Tata region, who becomes attracted to Maya potency and does not gain the chit or the strength of the hladini potency, he falls prey to the Maya potency and then becomes conditioned by the three modes of material nature. That is the meaning of nitya mukta, eternally conditioned. It's a nadi, which means you cannot trace out the beginning of his karmic conditioning, because it occurred, the decision occurred prior to the three modes of material nature. The decision occurred in the Tata region, because in that Tata region, the living entity could have also gone to the spiritual world. So this is the Siddhanta of our Gaudiya Vaishnav tradition. This is the real Siddhanta of our Gaudiya Vaishnav tradition. It's important to recognize and understand the neutrality of the jiva, what his choices are, how he decides, and the Lord's response to his decision. Also, it's important to recognize that if the jiva in the material world rises, if once he's conditioned and he's rising, either in politics or by wealth, fame, fortune, or even if he rises to the impersonal state of Brahman realization, in any of those conditions, the jiva will fall again, because he's not engaged in the service of Lord Krsna. And this is the reason why the tatastha jiva originally falls. So whether he is falling from his original position, or even if he's trying to regain liberation, I should say liberation from the three modes of material nature, even if he's successful at alleviating the three modes of material nature and coming to a liberated condition of Brahman, he will again become conditioned, because he hasn't taken shelter of and recognized Lord Krsna and devotional service to Lord Krsna. Very important, very, very important to understand this. Very important, because all of us in the material world are trying to eradicate suffering. And that is either from overloading our senses with sense gratification, or trying to become fully renounced from sense gratification. Either way will not be successful. But if we become devotees of Lord Krsna, then we will be successful at getting rid of the desire for sense gratification. We can remain completely free from the three modes of material nature and not be reinfected or conditioned again if we take shelter of Lord Krsna. This is the real purport and the meaning here. And the meaning behind nitya mukta and nitya bada. The conditioning for the nitya mukta, the choice is of entering this, the choice of the jiva is prior to being conditioned by the three modes of material nature. And similarly, if a jiva attains Brahman realization, from that position, which is beyond the three modes of material nature, if he meets a devotee of the Lord, he can go on from there to the spiritual world and never come back to the material world, just like the four Kumaras. Or just like in the case of Shukadeva Goswami. These are jivas that were in the mukti position. They were mukti realized, which means they had no conditioning of the modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. They were in a transcendental position of an impersonal realization. And they were fortunate to meet devotees of the Lord. And from there, they could understand, because they were not opposed to Krishna consciousness, they were able to become aware of the transcendental nature of God. And then the hladini Shakti entered them, gave them support to their realization, and they were able to become pure devotees. The hladini Shakti encouraged their self-realization of Krishna. The hladini Shakti revealed Krishna to them, and they were able to become pure devotees, pure associates. So Prabhupada says that. He explains that impersonalists are of two types: those that are opposed and those that are not. And those that are vehemently opposed to the form of the Lord, to any form, when they reach the impersonal platform, they reject devotees of the Lord. They reject Krishna consciousness. They reject the form of the Lord. They are only interested in formlessness. Therefore, they fall. They cannot remain forever in their condition, because it is opposed to Krishna consciousness. They cannot stay in that. Their false ego kicks in at some point, and they will fall from that position. This is how things work. This is Krishna consciousness. This is what Prabhupada's trying to explain to us, that must take to Krishna consciousness to be successful on any level. On any level. In material life or spiritual life, you must take to Krishna consciousness to be successful. Then you can progress. Then you can progress all the way back to home, back to Godhead. The kings that came, that are mentioned in the Vedas, all these great saintly kings, they were all devotees of Krishna. That's why they were successful. They were kings, but they went back to Godhead because they were staunch devotees. And the kings that were not devotees of Krishna, these were enemies. And that's why Krishna came in the 5,000 years ago, to destroy these demoniac kings who were misleading the people. You had, at that time of Krishna's appearance, saintly kings and unsaintly, non-saintly kings, kings that were devotees of Krishna and kings that were not devotees of Krishna. And there were battles. And Krishna took the side of the saintly kings. So the most important element is to become a devotee. That's why we are encouraging people, whatever walk of life you're in, whatever you are, whoever you are, doctor, lawyer, dentist, philanthropist, business person, ordinary worker, whatever you may classify, just a regular worker, hard worker, laborer, put the deity of the Lord in your home and chant Hare Krishna. Then you'll be successful. Your whole life will be successful. This is our preaching. And even if and we also preach to these impersonalists, because we're trying to appeal to these impersonalists who can become devotees of the Lord, and from their position. They're in such a high position where they're basically free from the three modes of material nature. And if they are introduced by Prabhupada to his books, to understanding the parampara, to understanding the nature of the soul, and to understanding Lord Krsna, they can take up bhakti yoga, and they don't have to come back to the modes of nature. They can purify their intelligence, and they can go back to home, back to Godhead. So it's a really beautiful spiritual culture which we are offering. And this, another important point I want to make is that Prabhupada emphasized, he said, in one life we can go back to Godhead. There's no limitations. We don't have to be born a Vaishnav. We can be dog eater, using an extreme example in the Bhagavatam, dogs, dog eaters, yavanas, malechas, which we are, we can become so advanced by chanting Hare Krishna that in this one lifetime, we can achieve Krishna consciousness and go back to home, back to Godhead. It doesn't require multiple lifetimes. The power of the holy name is such that if we're chanting and following, so rapidly can we get rid of our karma. Eating meat in this lifetime is not a hindrance to becoming Krishna conscious. If we've started off eating meat, drinking liquor, intoxication, prostitution, gambling, lowest forms of life, if we're doing all types of negative things, akarmic things, vikarmic things, doesn't make a difference. The holy name in this age is so powerful and so merciful and so wonderful. It can convert anyone into a pure devotee in one lifetime. It does not require multiple lifetimes. If Prabhupada said if we chant 16 rounds, follow the four regulative principles, one life we go back to home, back to Godhead. So powerful. This is an exception. This is exceptionally powerful mantra in this age. Krishna is giving, Lord Chaitanya is giving liberally, liberal, if we just take this up. And that's why we want to really get on people to chant. Somehow or other, we want people to chant. They don't require to be super brainiacs. They don't require to study all the Vedas. They don't require to memorize verses. They don't require that. They just require regular chanting. People are used to regularity, whatever they're doing. They regularly go to the gym. They regularly do yoga. They regularly take their medication. People are used to regulation. They regularly get up to go to work. They need to regularly chant. If they just regularly chant, they will advance so quickly. So quickly. So that is our mission, is to get people to chant. Everyone should make it their mission. Get people to chant regularly. Not this mantra, not that mantra, not prajalpa. Learn to chant Hare Krishna. Learn to chant regularly. And you will get rid of all the problems of your life. All of them. Doesn't mean you're going to get a big house. Doesn't mean you're going to have a beautiful wife. It doesn't mean you're going to have a big bank balance or a new car. They may happen, but that's not the purpose of chanting. The purpose of chanting is to become God conscious. Your riches and your fame and your fortune are already karmic. They're predestined. That's not the purpose of chanting. You're suffering, you're unhappy, you're depressed, you're lonely, your money is not giving you happiness and joy. Your wife, your children are giving you marginal happiness and joy. You're chanting because you want to be actually happy. So chant with the understanding that you have a spiritual, that you are a spirit soul. Chant because you want to know God. Chant for your highest good. Krishna being so kind and so merciful and being the Supreme Lord, he will give you self-realization. He will give you himself. He will make your life perfect. We don't always know what that means. We have to give up ourselves to Krishna's guidance and Krishna's mercy, God's mercy. We can't predicate what God is going to do to make us happy. It happens by his will. Not by our will, by his will. Chanting puts us in, the chanting of Hare Krishna aligns us with Krishna. It allows us to see the greater will of the Lord and allows us to surrender to that and allow Krishna to guide us or to take control of our life. That is what we want. We want our intelligence, our body, our mind to be aligned with God. Then we're fearless, we're happy, we're joyful under any conditions of life. Under any conditions, because everything around us is changing. We want to find that constant. We want to find that constant. We're in turmoil, and that's the problem. So the constant will be our alignment with God. God is constant. He's beyond the influence of kala or time. He's controlling time. So if we know Krishna and he is in our life, if we are linked with him, if we are aligned with him, then we have nothing to fear. Then change will not bother us, because we're going to change. Our body's changing. People around us are coming and going. Riches are coming and going. None of this will affect us. And when that happens, peace, harmony, love will be there for us. No more loneliness, no more depression, no more anxiety, no more doubts, no more illusion. Everything that is against our well-being will be removed from us. And what we will be left with is praying, love for Krishna, that he has allowed us to surrender to him and to take shelter of him, and allow him to guide us and control us. That is the only thing that is really missing from our life, both materially and spiritually. So I hope this has been inspiring. I hope this has been an inspiring video, because Krishna truly inspires me. Srila Prabhupada truly inspires me. All of our previous acharyas truly inspire me. And we would love to get to that position, each and every one of us, where we are truly inspired by our Lord, truly inspired, feeling happy and joyful from within, where the doubts are removed, where our life is clear, the path is clear, and we have nothing but love. Each day we wake up to embrace Krishna, to serve him, to chant his holy names. It's a gift. It's an opportunity. It's not being forced upon us. It's our best position. It's ecstatic to wake up and have tears in our eyes that we are bhaktas. That is the position we want to come to. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.